Hi viewers, in this video we will tap into the movie John Wick Chapter 4. We will discuss the movie story, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide a review and share some personal reactions. Let's begin with the movie story. The film starts in New York, where John Wick, played by Keanu Reeves, and his Pitbull have taken refuge with the Bowery King, played by Lawrence Fishburne. John is punching a board until his knuckles bleed, and BK comes to task him if he is ready to go after the high table. John simply says, yeah. John travels to Morocco, where he chases men working for the Elder on horseback. After killing those men, John confronts the Elder for his ring. Though John is told that the ring is gone, John then proceeds to execute the Elder before departing. Back in New York, Winston and Sharon are summoned by the Harbinger to meet the Marquis de Gramont, played by Bill Skarsgård, who was sent by the High Table. They have learned of the Elder's execution and the Mark brats Winston for failing to kill John. As a result, the Marks has the New York Continental Condiment and blown up. Winston is demoned ex recordo, and to rob it in deeper, the Marks shoots Sharon in the chest. Winston stays by his friend's side as he dies, saying it should have been him. In Paris, a blind assassin named Keynes is standing in the park as his daughter Mia is playing the violin in the park. Kane is called upon by the Marks to go after John. Kane says he's retired, but the Marquis threatens Mia's life if Kane refuses the order of the High Table. John heads to the Osaka Continental, managed by his old friend Shimizu Koji, where his daughter Akira is his consort. Koji meets with John on the roof, agreeing to give him sanitary in secret, although Akira doesn't trust John being there. Soon, the Marquis' right-hand man Chidi arrives with his hit squad in an attempt to lure John out. Koji's own man shows up and face off against the High Table assassins by firing arrows in the darkness. Where the hitmen make it to the roof, John grabs his gun and starts to do what he does best. While Koji's squad are able to fight off most of the High Table hitmen, Keynes arrives and begins his own body count, setting up traps to help him here, where his targets are moving before using his sword and gun to kill the men. Meanwhile, Akira joins the fight and executes some of Chidi's men, but she ends up getting shot and wounded. John helps her and Koji get out while he continues to fight more men, including taking out several with a pair of nunchucks. He is found by Kane, the two of them viewing each other as former friends. As Kane is reluctant to go after John but does so for the sake of Mia, John and Kane briefly right before John manages to get away. In the middle of the gunfight, a tracker, Mr. Nobody, and his German Shepherd are nearby, and he kills some of the gunmen going after John. He wants the contract on John's head too, but he claims that the granted $20 million is not enough, so he is currently helping John. As Koji and Akira are running out, they encounter Kane. He and Koji are also old friends, but Koji refuses to allow Kane to go after John, so they engage in a sword duel. When it appears that Koji is allowed to walk away, he keeps up the fight until Kane delivers a fatal blow. Akira holds her father's body as he dies and attempts to grab his sword to kill Kane, but he advises her against it so that she does not suffer the same fate as her father, and he tells her that he will see her again. Akira goes to the train station where she finds John, blaming him for her father's death. She tells him to kill Kane or she will. Winston meets the Bowery King, so they both know them still being close to John makes them targets. Meanwhile, the Harbinger talks to the Marquis over the unnecessary bloodshed at the Osaka Continental, but the Marquis says it is necessary to not only kill John Wick but to destroy the idea of him as an untouchable and unkillable figure. The Marquis is then visited by Mr. Nobody, who demands a $23 million contract for killing John. The Marquis responds by impaling his hand and forcing him to choose either pulling the knife out or pulling his hand out to see where his ambitions lie. Mr. Nobody pulls his hand out, cutting between his fingers, and the Marquis agrees to honor his requests. John meets Winston at Charon's tomb, offering his condolences for the loss of his friend. Winston wants to get back at the Marquis, so he tells John that in order to win his freedom from the High Table, he must challenge the Marquis to a duel, even though it is believed that High Table duels are only myth. The only people who could support John in his endeavor in his family, but the Rosca Roma tore his ticket and severed ties with him. Seeing no other way, John agrees to seek them out. John travels to Rosca Roma in Berlin, where he is greeted with a shotgun blast by the priest before he is tied up with a noose around his neck. He is met by his adoptive sister Katie, who is angry and John because his killing of the elder led the Marquis to order the execution of her father Piotr, who would have approved of John in the duel. John offers to help Katia to redeem himself, and she orders him to go after a German High Table member named Kila, the man who killed her father. John agrees to Kila's nightclub, where Kane and Mr. Nobody are also there after tracking John down. The three sit for a card game with Kila, where Kila cheats before having his men go after the three assassins, while Kane and Mr. Nobody hold their own against the thugs along with Nobody's dog. John goes after Kila throughout the club in the midst of oblivious club guards. John slices Kila's neck with a card and fights him. Kila uses his strength and weight against John. Kila's men go after John and meets predictably bloody ends. Kila pushes John over a balcony, but it is not enough to stop him. John eventually corners Kila and knocks him over a stairway, sending him fooling until the smashes headfirst onto the ground, killing him. John then takes one of Kila's gold teeth as a proof of his death and brings it to Katia, who reacts approvingly and helps John undergo the ceremony where he is branded with the family's crest and given support for the doll. Winston visits the Marquis with the official challenge document from John for the duel. Despite the Marquis trying to refuse, Winston reminds him that he is still bound to the High Table and its customs, so he must go through with it. In addition, Winston demands that if Johns win, Winston will no longer be a comedicardo and his Continental will be undamaged and rebuilt as it were. With his management reinstated, however, the Marquis reminds Winston that he will be John's second, so if John dies, so will he. John arrives to sit down with the Marquis as the Harbinger presides over them to discuss the conditions of the duel. They will meet at the Skarsgård in Paris at sunrise and will duel with guns. If either of them fails to show up before the deadline, it will be an automatic forfeiture and grounds for execution. Kane will be the Marquis' second, and he agrees to allow him and his daughter free if he can kill John. John goes to a church where he sits to pay tribute to Helen. Kane meets him there in a friendly manner, telling him about Mia and what he has to lose. John later meets with Winston and Poverty King, the latter giving him a new gun and bulletproof suit. The Harbinger reminds the Marquis of what would happen within the High Table if he were there, killed by John. To ensure that John does not make it to the Skarsgård on time, the Marquis deploys Chidi and his thugs to go after him. A radio DJ also encounters two other listening assassins by the bounty on John is set for everyone who can kill him before sunrise. As John makes his way to the Skarsgård, scores of assassins go after him. He faces off against gunmen in the streets, even getting into the traffic around the Arc de Triomphe, shooting the bad guys or letting them get hit by the cars. The High Table keeps track of his whereabouts, leading to more assassins going after him. John enters a warehouse full of the bad guys and fires explosive rounds at them. At the same time, Nobody helps take out some of the assassins and contracts the Marquis demanding a higher payment. The Marquis ultimately agreed to a $40 million contract, luring out more desperate and doomed hitmen. John finally makes it to the steps leading to the Skarsgård, killing several more assassins before Chidi shows up and knock him all the way back down the steps. Kane shows up to help John get to the top, helping him kill Chidi's guys. Nobody arrives at well, fighting Chidi because he threw his dog into traffic, but he's okay. With John's help, Chidi is brought down. The dog bites him in the balls and nobody puts a bullet in his head. For good measure, the dog also pees on Chidi's face. John makes it mere moments before the sun rises. He and Kane grabs their pistols as they engage in an old-fashioned duel. Both manage to hit each other twice. On the third round, Kane shoots John in the gut, but John doesn't fire. The Marquis then orders that he claim the cop degrades so that he may be the one to kill John Wick. He grabs his gun and aims for John before Winston tells him he is an arrogant asshole and reminds him John didn't fire his last round. The Marquis realizes it's too late before John blows his brains out. The Harbinger then declares that both John and Kane are free from their obligation to the High Table. John goes back down the steps and briefly thinks about Helen, saying her name before it slumps over. John Wick dies a free man. Winston and Bowery King bury John next to Helen with his tombstone reading "Loving husband" as he requested. Beaky asks Winston if he thinks John is in heaven or hell, to which Winston replies, "Who knows?" The two walk away with Beaky continue to look after John's dog. After the credits, Kane goes to find Mia and reunite with her. Not far from him, Akira starts to approach him and extract her revenge. The film is dedicated to Launch Reddick. Now let's talk about the short biography of the main cast. Keanu Reeves, born September 2, 1964, Lebanon, is a Canadian actor who found his greatest success in comedy, science fiction and action movies. Reeves' mother was an English performer and costume designer, and his father was a Hawaiian geologist. They divorced when he was a young child and he lived with his mother. The family moved first to Sydney, then to New York City, and finally to Toronto, where Reeves grew up. He struggled in school and attended 4 different high schools, one of which he was focused on the arts before leaving to pursue an acting career. His first professional appearance was in the 1984 episode of the comedy series Hanging In. Following more roles in TV, movies and shows, Reeves made his film's debut as a hockey player in Youngblood 1986, set in the world of junior hockey in Canada. Later that year, he gained notice for his portrait of disaffected teen in the bleak drama River's Edge, and as the son of an alcoholic father, Andrew Griff, in the TV movie Under the Influence. Reeves appears in several movies over the next 2 years, more prominently Dangerous Lessons 1988, before starring in the slacker comedy Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure 1989, about 2 high school students who time travel for a history project. The movie was an unexpected and enduring hit. Later in 1989, Reeves also acted in Ron Howard's Parenthood. After providing Todd's voice in the 1990 animated series Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, Reeves started in 3 movies in 1991, playing an FBI agent in Catherine Bigelow's Point Break and a male prostitute in Gus Van Sant's My Own Private Dog, which also stars River Phoenix, and reprising the role of Ted in the sequel Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. He later appears in Kenneth Branagh's Much Ado About Nothing 1993. Reeves made several disappointing movies before playing a bomb expert in Speed 1994. The thriller was a blockbuster and it made him an action star. Reeves then appeared in a series of films that failed to connect with both critics and moviegoers. These included the science fiction movie Johnny Mnemonic 1995, the romantic drama A Walk in the Cloud 1995, and the crime comedy Feeling Minnesota 1996, somewhat more successful than The Devil's Advocate 1997, in which he played a liar who falls under the spell of the devil, A.I. Pacino. In 1999, Reeves reached a new level of stardom with his portrayal of Neo in the sci-fi cult classic The Matrix 1999. The blockbuster, which was also critically acclaimed, launched a hugely successful franchise that include two sequels, both 2003. Continuing to pursue David's role, Reeves appeared in the sports movies The Replacements 2000 and Hardball 2001 before playing a supporting role in the romantic comedy Something Gotta Give 2003 and in the coming-of-age drama Thumbsucker 2005. He also starred as a demonologist in Constantine 2005 and a would-be bank robber in Henry's Crime 2010. In 2013, he made his directorial debut with Man of Tai Chi 2013 about an underground martial art fights club. He also starred in the drama. Reeves then arrives praised for his performance as a classic anti-hero in the title role of John Wick 2014. The movie was a huge hit and sequel followed 2017, 19 and 2023. Reeves' later films included The Whole Truth 2006, To the Bone 2017, Destination Wedding 2018 and Always Be My Maybe 2019. In 2020, he returned to his first movie franchise starring in the well-received Bill and Ted Face the Music. Reeves turned to another iconic series with the reprised the role of the Neo in the Matrix Resurrections 2021. The next main actor is Donnie Yen. Born 27 July 1963, is a Hong Kong actor, filmmaker, martial artist, and action director. He is the recipient of various accolades including 3 Golden Horse Awards and 5 Hong Kong Film Awards. He is best known for portraying Wing Chun, Grandmaster IP Man in the IP Man film series, starring in IP Man 2008, IP Man 2, IP Man 3 and IP Man 4, The Final. He also serves as co-producer of the spin-off of Master Z, IP Man Legacy. Born in Guangdong, Yang developed an interest in martial art at a young age and began experimenting with various styles, including Tai Chi and other traditional Chinese martial arts. At age 18, he auditioned for action choreographer Zhang Wuping in the Hong Kong. He landed his first starring role in the 1984 Hong Kong martial art action films Drunken Tai Chi. He made his breakthrough role as the protagonist General Nap Pan in the Once Upon a Time in China 1992 opposite Jet Li. He went on to appear in several other notable Hong Kong kung fu films including Aaron Wonky and Wing Chun. In 1997, he starred in his directorial debut film Legend of the Wall. Yan made his American debut in Highlander Endgame 2000, followed by a cameo in Blade 2 2002. He continues to be active in Hong Kong cinema in the 2000, appearing in the critically acclaimed Wuxia film as the antagonist Long Sky in The Hero 2002, opposite Lee once again. In 2003, he played by antagonist Wu Zhou in the American action comedy film Shanghai Nights opposite Jackie Chan. He later appeared in the American films Rough One 2016, Triple X The Return of Xander Cage 2017, Mulan 2020 and John Wick Chapter 4 2023. In television, he starred as Chen Zhen in the television series Fist of Fury 1995. He later reprised his role as Chen Zhen in the 2010 film Legend of the Fist, The Return of Xin Chen. Our main villain of the movie is Bill Skarsgård. Born 9 August 1990, is a Swedish actor. He is known for portraying Pennywise in the horror film IT and IT Chapter 2, based on Stephen King's novel of the same name. Other horror appearances were the series Hemlock Grove and Castle Rock and the film Barbarian. Skarsgård has also appeared in the comedy Simple Salmon 2010, the thrilled The Divergent series Allegiant 2016 and Atomic Blonde 2017, the drama 9 Days 2020 and the action movies John Wick Chapter 4 2023 and Boy Gilbert 2023. Skarsgård was born on 9 August 1990 in Vällingby, Stockholm, Sweden, the son of actor Stellan Skarsgård and Dr. Maj Skarsgård. He has 7 siblings including actor Alexander, Gustav and Walter. I'm David McShane. Born 19 September 1942, is an English actor. He is known for his television performances, particularly as the title role in the BBC series Lovejoy, A.I. Swearengens in Deadwood 2004-6, and its 2009 film continuation, and Mr. Wednesday in American Gods 2017 to 2021. For the original series of Deadwood, McShane won the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor, Television Series Drama, and received a nomination for the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in the Drama Series. For the film, he, as producer, was nominated for the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Television Movie. His films, including Harrybone in The Wild and the Willing, 1962, Charlie Cartwright in If It's Tuesday, The Must Be Belgium, 1969, Wolf Leaser in Villain, 1971, Tidipos in Sexy Beast, 2000, Frank Powell in Hot Rod, 2007, Captain Hook in The Shrek the Third, 2007, Thailand in Kung Fu Panda and Kung Fu Panda 4, Blackbeard in The Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, 2011, and Vincent Scott in the John Wick series, 2014 to present. Now let's talk about the complete box office performance of the movie. John Wick Chapter 4 knocked down the box office competition, collecting a remarkable 73.5 million in its opening weekend. Boosted by positive reviews and enthusiastic word of mouth, the 4th installment in Lionsgate action series, led by Keanu Reeves as a legendary assassin, landed the best start of the franchise. It's one of the rare original properties to keep growing and improving upon the last in terms of ticket sale. The original John Wick opened to a modest $40 million in 2014. Its sequel John Wick Chapter 2 took $30.4 million to start in 2017, and the third film John Wick Chapter 3 previously marked a series high with $56.8 million in 2019. At the international box office, John Wick Chapter 4 took in $64 million, debuting at number 1 in each of the 71 markets where it opened, bringing its globally tally to $137.5 million. It cost more than $100 million to produce, giving it the highest price tag in the series, but ticket sales are already proving the extra cake was worth it. This is sober opening, says David A. Gross, who runs the movie consultant film franchise Entertainment Research. Each of the John Wick sequel has shown big growth. It's outstanding. Even at 2 hours and 49 minutes, audience were high on the R-rated John Wick Chapter 4, which earned a coveted cinema score. The film's opening weekend audience was 69% male, while 70% were over the age of 25. According to Lionsgate, only 9 franchises in the past 40 years have managed to set opening weekend records with their 4th outings. Of these 9 properties, only 5 have seen each installment improve upon its predecessor in terms of final box office release. In the case of John Wick, the first movie tapped out with $86.1 million but became a sleeper hit on home entertainment, while the sequel ended its run with $174.3 million premium, which is currently the highest grossing entry, left the big screen with $328.3 million globally. The John Wick brand is an anomaly, says Joy Drake, Lionsgate's Motion Picture Group president. The results are speaking for themselves. We expect a big multiple. Chad Stahelski directed by latest John Wick, which follows the reluctant hitman as he continues his fight against the powerful organization known as the High Table. Lionsgate has been coy about a 5th John Wick adventure, but nothing has been confirmed. However, Reeves as other cast members are returning for Ballerina, a spin-off story starring Anna de Armas. It's more than tempting, Drake says of returning to the John Wick universe. It's not going to give up hope there cannot be a John Wick 5. He also teased there is at least one other spin-off in the works, adding, "We hope to announce it soon." Expect for Shazam! Fury of the Roads. It's been a standout march at the box office as new entries of Scream and Creed also established opening weekend benchmarks in their respective series. What a difference a year makes, says Paul DeGarbian, a senior Cosmoscore analytics. March of 2023 is benefiting from a spectacular lineup of films that has made it one of the most notable month of March on record. Shazam 2 solid to second place with $9.7 million from 4,071 Venus ticket sales, graded by 69% in its second weekend. It's another dismal tenor for the quickly superhero adventure starring Scary Levy, which cost Warner Bros. And DC $110 million to produce and another $100 million to promote. So far, Fury of the Roads has earned $46 million in worst shaping to be one of the worst turnout for a modern superhero movie. It's been a rough period for the comic book adaptation. Disney's latest Marvel sequel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania has crumbled in its week, allowing its huge $106 million debut. Already it's running out of steam with $209 million in North America, which is above the original Ant-Man, $180 million, but behind the 2018 sequel Ant-Man and the Wasp, $216 million. With $465 million globally, it's not even close to matching the total of the first two movies. Each earned $519 million and $622 million respectively. Superheroes has shown untragic weakness, but we have been spoiled. Gross says we just have two superpower entities. John Wick Chapter 4 continues the franchise audience-specific box office win streak. John Wick Chapter 4 has been in theaters for over a month and has just hit another box office milestone that continues an oddly specific track for the franchise. The John Wick series has humble beginning as the first movie had a budget of $20 million, which is relatively low by today's standards. Nevertheless, the movie went on to make $80 million worldwide, and each consecutive release has been more successful than the last. John Wick Chapter 4 is the most successful John Wick movie yet, and it has just crossed a huge number that Keanu Reeves and director Chad Stahelski would never have thought was achievable in 2014. After 6 weeks at the John Wick Chapter 4 box office broke a franchise record, grossing a total of $402 million and counting. That's a whole $74 million more than its predecessor, John Wick Chapter 3 Problem, and while the number is small compared to other huge action series and superhero franchises, it's all relative to the movie's budgets. John Wick Chapter 4 was made with a relatively low $100 million, which is what helped the forecall become such a talking point when it comes to the 2023 box office. John Wick Chapter 4's budget and box office intake also continues a very strange and specific series stance. Every John Wick movie has made 4 times its budget. Given that John Wick Chapter 4's budget was $100 million and has just reached $400 million at the box office, the 2023 movie has made back 4 times in its budget. A huge success for any movie and a result that any studio would be happy with, as John Wick Chapter 4 only needed $250 million to be a success. Interestingly, every John Wick movie has reached its milestone, somehow making almost exactly 4 times their budgets. 2014's John Wick had a budget of $20 million and went on to make $86 million, which is 4.3 times its budget. John Wick Chapter 2 had a budget of $40 million and made $174 million worldwide, which is 4.35 times its budget. John Wick Chapter 3 Problem had a $75 million budget and made a total of $328 million, which is 4.37 times its budget. The franchise numbers are so constant as the box office gross essentially double along with the movie's double budget. The numbers. Though John Wick Chapter 4's box office gross will not be double its procedure, it will still continue the oddly specific 4 times the budget trend. John Wick box office parallels its Rotten Tomatoes trends. John Wick box office success is what's called a staircase trend, as each movie is more financially successful than the last. And that's parallel with John Wick's strong Rotten Tomatoes trend too. Every John Wick movie has a Rotten Tomatoes score than the last, third, the second and third movie has the same 89%. John Wick Chapter 4 has a sky-high fresh score of 94%. Between the box office performances and the Rotten Tomatoes score, the John Wick franchise has achieved something completely unprecedented. No other major action franchise has gotten both consistently better box office grosses and consistently better critical receptions. John Wick's 4 total box office prediction. To be specific down to the decimal point, the first 3 John Wick movies all made exactly 4.3 times their budgets. If John Wick Chapter 4 wants to join the 4.3 club, it will have to make $430 million, which is an additional $28 million on top of what the movie has already made. When it comes to John Wick Chapter 4's domestic box office gross, the movie only dropped 17% on its most recent weekend after dropping 27% the week before. Those numbers mean that John Wick Chapter 4 is still holding strong after 6 weeks and the movie still made over $10 million this past weekend. The forecast could reach $430 million, but John Wick Chapter 4's video on demand release could ruin the film's chances. The action flick will be available to rent on Prime Video on May 23. Given that the movie is still making big numbers at the box office, Lionsgate might have jumped the gun on John Wick Chapter 4's VOD release, leaving millions on the table. The one thing for sure is that after breaking so many box office records, the John Wick series will become a billion-dollar grossing franchise by the end of John Wick Chapter 4's theatrical run. The series is only $10 million away from hitting that 10-digit number. John Wick Chapter 4 blows past the $400 million mark at global box office. John Wick 4 has taken another Dragon's Breath shotgun blast at the worldwide box office, passing the $400 million mark as it continues to draw audience in its 6th week of release. The film grossed over another $10.1 million internationally to bring the worldwide total to $402 million. Additionally, this has brought the total box office for the John Wick franchise to $991 million, meaning almost certain to pass the $1 billion mark before the film leaves theaters. The film was boosted by strong word of mouth. It garnered the best ratings of the series so far on Rotten Tomatoes, 94% fresh, Metacritic's 87%, and also earned a coveted ranking from Cinema Score. It has also been re-released for a 1-week run on IMAX, which began on Friday, April 28. The film received critical acclaim for the performance of leading man Keanu Reeves, whose all-action commitment to the role has been widely admired, as well as the vision and slick action set pieces dreamed at and precisely played by director Chad Stahelski. What makes John Wick such a hit? The first John Wick film premiered in 2014, nearly a full decade ago. The movie followed the story of John Wick, played by Reeves, a retired but still highly respected and deeply feared assassin who goes on a rampage against the son of a high-ranking member of the Russian mafia following the murder of his dog. His emergence from retirement drawn his back into the world of assassinations for the sequel, but in his desperation, he assassinated a colleague on continental grounds. His actions go against the high table, a council of underworld leader who put a hit on Wick, allowing his quest for revenge. The films follow Wick as he goes against an increasingly impressive roster of fellow assassins who hope to cash in on the price on his head. The original film was a hit with both critics and audience alike. John Wick's stories may well be done for now on the big screen, but the character is set to return in a spin-off movie entitled Ballerina. The movie, directed by Len Wiseman, will star Anna de Armas and see Reeves turn the role of Wick in a story set between Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, alongside fellow Wick alumni Ian McShane and the late Lance Reddick. Ballerina is due to be released in June 2024. You can watched it then. John Wick Chapter 4 shows up for $25.8 million, a similar Friday previews to Saturday trajectory of managed 12% as did John Wick Chapter 3. That makes for a revised franchise and Lionsgate pandemic record opening of $73.5 million. Worldwide Star is also a franchise best, as we always know it would be with $137.5 million. The Keanu Reeves movies debut at number 1 in each of the 71 markets where the pick opened the weekend. Internationally, the film took is an estimated $64 million overseas, exceeding all pre-release estimates for the film. Stateside, it Reeves' second best live-action opening after the $91.7 million made by 203's Matrix Reloaded, and worldwide, it's likely to the actor's second best debut after Matrix Revolutions' $201.4 million global star in 2003. John Wick joins a select few film series that set a franchise record with their fourth outings, only 9 in the past 40 years. Of these 9 franchises, only 5 have done with John Wick has accomplished in building to 4 films with each new offering exceeding the last. Greater than 3-3, greater than 2-2, and greater than 1. John Wick Chapter 4 is the biggest R-rated opening post-pandemic, exceeding Halloween Kills' $49.4 million, which was hampered by a theatrical day and date releasing on streaming service Peacock. To date, John Wick Chapter 4 is the second best domestic opening of 2023 after Disney Marvel Studios' Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania $106 million. Interesting to note that this is supposedly Reeves' song in the core franchise, and the fourth call opened to more than No Time to Die $55.2 million at the US and Canada box office. Box Office Analytics Films Intelligence report that 5 million people went to see the fourth duel this weekend to Quantumania $7 million admissions. Steady foot traffic through matinees, but also a great turnout after 8 p.m. as expected for this R-rated sequel. 14% came before 1 p.m. yesterday, 30% people came IP 5 p.m., 31 were there between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m., while 25 came after 8 p.m. By comparison, Scream 6 saw 33% of its admission after 8 p.m. Average ticket price of John Wick Chapter 4 regular ticket was $13.42, while premium ticket went for $17 a piece. So far, 32% of moviegoers have seen the film play in a premium format, playing at average of $2.99 more per ticket. IMAX report that the $12.7 million WW John Wick Chapter 4 is the second highest grossing Lionsgate little over in the large format auditorium, with $8.4 million stateside in 400 IMAX theaters, the fourth call in the third highest IMAX opening for Lionsgate in US and Canada. Top markets for the Chad Stahelski director sequel in records to admission were LA, NIC, Dallas, Toronto, and San Francisco. Back in December 2021, Lionsgate shifted John Wick Chapter 4 off its previous Memorial Day weekend 2022 launch date to this weekend as the Pix production was delayed, and the Paramount had big footed that release date with Top Gun Maverick. The first trailer made a debut at CinemaCon last spring before being dropped during a Collider panel at San Diego Comic-Con with Chad Stahelski, and surprise appearances by Keanu Reeves in Hall H. Lionsgate had a global screening and premiere strategy which was set to amplify audience and critical word of mouth. The John Wick, for which being it was a whiskey screening with Reeves and Stahelski in attendance on lock. The rest of the campaign was built around 2 pillars: 1, to reinforce that John Wick is a man, not a superhero, whose journey has been motivated by love and a painful loss, and 2, that this movie would finally offer John Wick a path to freedom and peace. Everything that Lionsgate Motion Picture Group Vice Chair Adam Fogelson, Lionsgate Marketing President JP Richard, and CEO President Carrie Moore and their team devised, from the moments of the full trailer to that trailer's choice of music to the horse class image in the main one sheet to the use of dogs in both creative and publicity, was connected to these pillars. Reeves playing with puppies on his talk show tour. John Wick Chapter 4 is aiming to set a new franchise record in its box office debut. The fourth installment in Lionsgate action thriller series, led by Keanu Reeves as a legendary assassin, looks to collect a mighty $65 million to $70 million from 3,800 North American theaters over the weekend. The movie also debuts this weekend in 71 territories at the international box office. By Sunday, ticket sales should climb to the least $100 million to $115 million worldwide. It's impressive that each film in the John Wick franchise has managed to dramatically improve upon its procedure at the box office. Beginning with 2014's John Wick, $14 million to start, 2017's John Wick Chapter 2, $30.4 million, and its 2019 John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, $56.8 million, Chapter 4 earning some of the best review of the already well-received pack. Should continue the trend, it cost more than $100 million to produce, giving it the highest price tag in the series. So, John Wick Chapter 4 and the Parabellum is currently the highest grossing installment in the franchise with $328.3 million globally. The first movie tapped out with $86.1 million but became a sleeper hit on home entertainment, while the sequel ended its run with $174.3 million. As long as momentum sustained, Chapter 4 hopes to become the biggest earner of the fourth by the time it reveals theaters. Regardless of his office performance, a spin-off called Ballerina starring Anna de Armas is already in the works. Except for Shazam Fury of the Gods, it's been a standout March at the office. The new entries of Scream and Creed also establishing opening weekend benchmarks in their respective series. John Wick Chapter 4 is the only new nationwide release, so it will have no problem overtaking Shazam 2 as the #1 movie in domestic charts. Chad Stahelski directed the latest John Wick, which follows the reluctant hitman as he continues his fight against the powerful crime organization known as the High Table. On his journey, he seeks out the most powerful prey in the underworld, from New York to Paris to Japan to Berlin. Along with Reeves, the cast includes Donnie, Bill Skarsgård, Lawrence Fishburne, Lance Reddick, who unexpectedly died last week at age 60. Brightest chief film critics on Gelperman praised the fourth chapter, which clocked in at a lengthy 2 hours and 49 minutes as a knowingly overstuffed gift to fan. New Yorker critics Richard Body called it by far the best of the fourth films and the first of the cycle that I'd recommend it. Welcome back, Mr. Wick. 4 years after John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum director Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves has returned to theater with John Wick Chapter 4, a film that was supposed to hit theaters almost 2 full years ago. Trust me, it was worth the wait. Stahelski and writers Shea Hatton and Mitchell Finch have titled the mythology-savvy approach of the last couple theater with the streamlined action of the first film, resulting in a final hour here that stands among the best of the genre. John Wick Chapter 4 opens with its title character Reeves on the run again as the villainous power that we known as the High Table get in his way. The main villain of the series is the Marks D. Garamount, Bill Skarsgård, a leader of the High Table, who keep rising the bounty on Wick's head while he also cleans up the messes left behind, including potentially eliminating Western Scott and is part of the nefarious organization. The opening scene takes Wick to Japan where he seeks help from the head of the Osaka Continental, Shimazu, and runs afoul of the blind high-table assassin named Kane. Lawrence Fishburne pops up now and then as Wick's Q, and the killer needs a new bulletproof suit, and Shamir Edison plays an assassin who seems to be waiting for the price on Wick's head to hit the right lever for him to get his payday. More than the last couple of films, the plot here, despite the movie's epic runtime, 169 minutes, feel refreshingly focused again. Here's John Wick, here are the bad guys, go. And go they do. Stahelski and his team contract action sequence in a manner and somehow feels both urgent and artistically terrified at the same time. Filmmakers who overthink their short out after landed on the tone that feels distant, lacking in stakes and feeling more stylish than substantial. The great action directors figure out how to film combat in a way that doesn't sacrifice tension of showships. The action sequence in John Wick Chapter 4, a long battle, gunfu shootouts between John and dozens of people who underestimate him, but they have so much momentum that they don't overstay their home. Welcome. They also have wonderfully defined stakes. At one point in the film, John and an enemy decide at the parameters of the table, including time, weapons, and variables. But this is very true of all the major action scenes in which we very clearly understand what John needs to do and who he needs to go through to finish the level. The simplicity of the objectives allow for complex choreography. We know what needs to happen for John to keep pushing forward as he has since the beginning of the first film. So much modern action is cluttered with character or medal objectives, but the Wick films have such brilliant clarity of attention that they can then have fun within those simple constructs. So much fun, the choreography of the action here can be simply breathtaking. I loved how often the word goes on around Wick and his unfortunate combatants in a sequence that would be the best in almost any other recent action movie, but it is like third or fourth here. Wick has to battle a makeup covered Scott Adkins and his arm of unlucky idiots in a crowded nightclub. The dancers barely notice the sometimes part a little bit to let them thought, but they don't stop and stare. With water pouring into the club, the writing and dancing bodies make of such a visually inventive backdrop. Later in one of my favorite action sequences of all time, Wick and his predator battle in the traffic circle around the Arc de Triomphe. The car doesn't stop, in fact, it feels like they speed up. As shooting out in the streets in the film, no one opens the windows to see what the hell is going on. The world outside of Wick and the mythology of this world almost feels like they cannot even see the legendary assassins and the hundred or so people he ends up killing. It's a fascinating visual starting choice. And then there's what I would call action geography. So many people have tried to mimic the pantheistic approach of the Barney movies, and the result have often been more incoherent than not. The amazing cinematography, Dan Larson, a regular Guillermo del Toro, calibrated on The Shape of Water, Nightmare Alley, and more, work with Stahelski to make sure the action here is clean and brutal, never confusing. The stunt work is phenomenal, and again the short outs have the feel of dance choreography more than the bland plot pushing of so many studio films. There's just so much grace and ingenuity whenever Wick goes to work. Of course, a great cast helps too. Reeves might have favorite line in this movie than any as far in the franchise, but he completely seals Wick's commitment while also imbuing him with emotional execution that adds more gravity to this chapter. The vengeful Wick of the first film is a different one than the Survivor 3 movies later, and Reeves knows exactly what his character needs. So many performers would add necessary touches to a character that's already just popular, but Reeves is smart about streamlining these performances to fit the film around him. It follows a few spotters to shine in different performers registers, especially Jen and Edison, The legendary Chan is fantastic here, not just in combat but the moments in between. Most people who know Damshan is will not be surprised to hear that he fits in her perfectly. But he is even much better than you expect. Addison also gives a fun performances as a man who just seems to be a mercenary waiting for the right price. But fans of the series will note from the beginning that this badass has a dog and this universe values puppies and people who love them. The only minor flaw in Wick's armor here is a bit of narrative self-incoherence. There are a few scenes, especially nearly when it feels like a seat is going on a bit too long, and I do think here's a slightly tighter, if you can say 150 minutes would be tight version of the films that's simply perfect. Fans will not care much has been made of what brings people out theater in the post-pandemic screaming heavy part, and this is a movie that would be seen with a cheering excited crowd. It has that contagious energy we love in action film, a whole room of people marveling at the ingenuity and intensity of what's unfolding in front of them. It's a movie that's meant to be watched loud and big. John Wick has fought hard for it, and here you expect that the stunts and fight choreography of the John Wick film will be top tier. The director, former kickboxer Chad Stahelski, got the start in the movie industry as a stuntsman after all, serving as Keanu Reeves' stunt double in The Matrix. Extravagantly showy stunt work is a given, and it's the main reason to watch these enjoyable pulpy slaughterfests, containing more so than the plot, which reprises the basic structure of past films, with Wick, played by Keanu Reeves, slicing this way through the countless henchmen of his former employers, the High Table. But even by the standard of the past Wick outings, this is remarkable. Human bodies are hurtled into moving vehicles. Reeves double stumps down the entire length of the cool stair, and just to remind us that we are in the hands of an action master, Stahelski delivered one extended, mind-boggling, complicated fight sequence is what appears to be single shot, the camera floating overhead. Stahelski re-teams with key crew, including production designer Kevin Kavanaugh, who restrained his fondness of non-tube structures and color coding. But there's a fresh blood in the cast, most notably a deliciously insouciant Donnie as blind assassin Kane, and Scott Adkins, who is enormous fun as Kila, a murderous plus-size German equipped with metal teeth, all the better for achieving the scenery. So, the movie is the most viewed in North American. John Wick has been the highlight action franchise of the past 10 years. The first film released in 2014 was surprisingly good and revitalized Keanu Reeves' career. The franchise has been going strong since then, with each sequel being a solid addition. Well, 4 years since Chapter 3 Parabellum released, we finally have John Wick Chapter 4. The movie has received plenty of praise from critics and fans alike, with many calling it the best in the franchise, although I do not think I would go quite that far. Chapter 4 once again follows Reeves as the ritual John Wick, who, after somehow surviving failing from the top of the Continental in the previous movie, goes to war with the High Table with the help of the Bowery King, played by Lawrence Fishburne, as for Winston and Sharon Lawrence Reddick, may he rest in peace. They are also suffering from the fallout of Parabellum, as they are left at the mercy of the Marquis Vincent D. Garmouth, played by Bill Skarsgård. Desperate to hunt down and kill John, the Marquis enlists the help of the blind assassin Kane, played by Donnie, and a hunter who goes by Mr. Nobody, Shamir Addison, while Winston advises John to challenge the Marquis to single combat to earn his freedom. The characters and world building of John Wick continue to be strong in his fourth installment, with John having the best narrative arc since probably the first movie, and Kane and Mr. Nobody being fantastic characters who I would be excited to see more of. As for the action, it is as expected for a John Wick movie, absolutely incredible, just like it was in the past 3 films. Once again directed by Chad Stahelski, the action of John Wick Chapter 4 is undoubtedly some of the best in the entire franchise. The stunt work, the cinematography, the editing, all of these are glorious and combine to create truly traffic action. This culminates is in one action set piece in the third act that takes place entirely is an overhead shot which I would argue is the best action scene of the decades. It reminds me a lot of a video game which also make me really want a John Wick video game now that I think about it. All of these fantastic features should have made Chapter 4 the best installment in the John Wick franchise. However, there are unfortunately a few things which hold it back. One of these things is Keanu Reeves himself. As I said, I love the arc this character went through, but Reeves' performance in this film is probably the weakest in the entire franchise. With simple sentences sounding wrong, which is a bad thing since simple sentence is all John Wick's piece in this movie. Along with this, Chapter 4 doubles down so many of the things that broke my immersion in previous installments. John is still surviving downright impossible falls, and civilians still do not expect two people being murdered right in front of them. Also, the more I think about what happened in this movie, the less relevant the events of the parabellum seem, since conflicts that were set up in the movie don't really amount to much here. But by far the biggest issue I had with John Wick Chapter 4 is the action itself. This may sound like a traditional because I was heaping praise on the action earlier. As I said previously, the action is spectacular with great cinematography, stunt work, etc. The problem is that we got too much of a good thing. The action scene is this movie go on and on and on and on to the point that I begin to grow bored with it all despite how well made it was. I can only see so many people get shot or stabbed in the face before it becomes retiring or pathetic as the probably sounds. I actually remember checking my watch a few times to see just how long the action had been doing. So the issue was not the action itself, but that it often went on for so far a certain point that I began to feel fraught by it all. I never thought that a movie could make me bored with constant action, yet John Wick Chapter 4 somehow achieved it. Despite this issue, though, I would still recommend it the film. The action, although sometimes overly long, is stellar. The characters are all compelling. The film is definitely the funniest in the franchise, and the ending is incredibly satisfying. John Wick Chapter 4 is definitely better than Parabellum. However, I am not sure where I would place it afterwards. My opinion of this movie's ranking may open on what happened in the future of this franchise. If future installment honored Chapter 4's ending, then it should be high up, but if they do not, then it will probably be on the lower end. John Wick Chapter 4 is now out in theaters, continuing the bloody saga of Keanu Reeves, unkillable hitman who has a soft spot of dogs. Fans back into theater to see Reeves and director Chad Stahelski pull off top-level movie action sequence with their team of martial art masters and Red Devil stunt teams, and in the midst of all the punching, kicking, stabbing and shooting. It can be hard to remember what the actual storyline of this franchise is, especially fourth films into it. We have come a long way from the simple beginning of a man getting revenge for the murder of his dog, and John Wick Chapter 4 expands the world of the franchise in some of the biggest ways we have seen yet. If you don't care about spoiler or just need a quick breakout of the events you saw, then check out a recap of everything that happens in John Wick Chapter 4. What happened at the end of the John Wick 3? John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum saw John Wick fight in the way to the elder leader of the assassin world in order to reverse his accommodator status and get every assassin in the world off his trial. However, the price of John's reviewed fatally to the high table was killing his friend Winston. John refuses to do it and instead fought for the Continental Hotel with Winston and Chikard Charon. In the end, Winston maneuvered to get himself and the Continental NYC re-incesses and ended up shooting John off a roof, leaving him for dead. Instead, the Bowery King rescued John and hide him away so that they would both heal and get revenge on the High Table. John Wick Chapter 4 Story and Ending. John Wick Chapter 4 picks up right from where Chapter 3 ended, with John Wick back on his feet and healed, ready to go after the High Table. The majority of the fourth film sees John fighting that uphill battle, starting with returning to face the elder that took John's finger and wedding ring in Chapter 3 is gone, but John executes the one replacing him, starring and all-out war with the High Table. Wick goes on the run, but the collateral damage from his act wishes over those remaining friends he has. The High Table unleashes the aristocratic and sadics. Marquis Vincent de Garamond builds Skarsgård to handle the John Wick situation, but the Marquis' method proved to extremely brutal. The Marquis makes his introduction by bringing Winston and Sharon in and making them witness the demonstration of the NYC Continental before they execute Sharon to teach Winston a lesson. To track down John, the Marquis hires and or courts several highly skilled assassins, including John's old blind friend Kane and the Tracker. The Marquis also sent his own team of elite High Table enforcers out on the kill, and it becomes a race to see who gets to John Wick first. The case goes through Japan's Osaka Continental, the Roxa Roma HQ in Berlin, and then to Paris, where John must battle his way to confronting the Marquis and Kane in a pistol duel. The terms of the duel are simple. If John and his sponsor Winston wins, his Comicado is lifted while Winston negotiates to get the Continental and his status as manager back. If Kane wins, he is free from all the obligation to the High Table and his daughter remains safe. For John Wick, the stakes are dire no matter the outcome. The duel requires John Wick and Kate to shoot single bullets at one another at 30 paces, then 20 and then 10, where missing is not an option. Both John and Kane suffer severe injuries in the first two rounds, but in the third round, John holds his bullet back, fooling the Marquis into thinking the duel is over. The Marquis arrogantly steps in to finish John off and instead catches the final bullet John saved right in the forehead. John Wick Chapter 4 ends with John Wick dying of his injuries on the steps of the temple where the duel is held. John is buried next to his wife Helen by Winston and the Poverty King, and his tombstone bearing the inscription "John wanted loving husband." John's death serves as full circle turn of the series. He was freed from service as an assassin after winning the duel, but the Marquis correctly called out that if he kept living, they would continue to take life as a killer. John's death is his ultimate release, as he gets to die a somewhat righteous man ready to be reunited with his wife. However, even though John Wick dies at the end, John Wick Chapter 4 makes sure to let fans know the franchise is not over yet. John Wick 4 perfectly redeemed Keanu Reeves' 11 years old action movie with 16% on Rotten Tomatoes. John Wick 4 may be one of Keanu Reeves' final outing as the Baba Yaga, but the movie was a widespread success and helped redeem an 11-year-old action flop. Having already put in 3 incredible performances as John Wick's protagonist, Reeves returned for the 4th installment in 2023, which became the franchise's biggest entry to date. Not only did it continue the strong reception of its precedents, but John Wick 4 also set box office records by becoming the highest grossing movie in the series, giving Keanu Reeves a well-deserved hit to help outcome his decade-old failure. Although Reeves will return in John Wick's ballerina spin-off, he isn't expected to feature in the main movies anytime soon, making his previous appearances all the more important. The first 3 films already proved John Wick was one of the biggest action franchises around. But with the 4th installment reaching new heights alongside reunited Reeves with a former co-star, it acted as the perfect redemption for the actor. After having one of the biggest mysteries a decade earlier, Reeves' Kung Fu movie's massive achievements helped officially prove that his 2013 disaster was nothing more than a small blip. John Wick 4 reunited Keanu Reeves and Hiroki Sanada 10 years after 47 Ronin. Despite 47 Ronin's failure, Keanu Reeves and Hiroki Sanada were able to reunite 10 years later and redeem their action flop through John Wick Chapter 4. The duo first appeared alongside each other in 2013's 47th Ronin, which had a $170 million budget and made just $151.8 million. In addition, the movie has a 16% tomato meter score on Rotten Tomatoes, with its audience score setting at just 48%, highlight how poorly the movie performed. With the fancy action film leaving a lot to be desired, Reeves and Sanda's reunion faced a lot of pressure, but it couldn't have gone any better. Both actors thrived in the franchise, fast-paced, close-quarters action, and proved that they can work together seemingly in the right environment. While John Wick 4 was a huge triumph and all-around success, the duo also had great on-screen chemistry that fully followed made of their struggle 10 years period. Sanada's performance as Shimasu Koji stole the show and became one of the John Wick's best supporting actors. While Reeves continues to deliver a captivating action performance in the leading role, both actors thrived in the franchise fast-paced, close-quarters action and showed that they can work together seemingly in the right environment, providing John Wick 4 is exactly what they need to put 47 Ronin behind them. What went wrong with Keanu Reeves' 47 Ronin movie? So, given the heavy investment 47 Ronin received alongside having the talent of Reeves and Sanada on board, the movie seemed like a surefire hit, but unfortunately, it failed to deliver. Attempting to cash in on the iconic Japanese story of the 47 Ronin, this fictionalized retelling combined fantasy with action, but it failed to engage its audience and ultimately fell flat. While the fantasy element sounded like a potential unique take on already popular story, 47 Ronin proceeded a overcomplicated yet overdeveloped plot, the failure to appeal to a large audience, and its overwhelming box office performance and reviews. Additionally, the movie was criticized for casting a white actor to play the leading role in a movie about Japanese samurai, as some felt it was disrespectful to the country's history since stories about the 47 Ronin are based on real events from the 700s. These valid complaints definitely hurt the movie, and despite how beloved Reeves is, even he could not save his reputation. While 47 Ronin isn't Keanu Reeves' worst ranked movie, it did come at a time when it was not at a peak of its popularity, which further compounded the film's status as disappointment. John Wick 4 was the team up Keanu Reeves and Hiroki Sanada deserved. Watching Keanu Reeves and Hiroki Sanada team up in John Wick 4 was the perfect evidence that the action can excel together. Their characters had a mutual respect that allowed them to fight for the same cause, and while their interaction was fairly brief, it still exceeded their time in 47 Ronin. While Reeves has had numerous fight scenes throughout his time in the John Wick franchise, his one inside the Oscar Continental in among his best, and Sanada also got a great showing with both actors flaunting their action skills through a variety of interesting sequences. Although Sanada's character was sadly killed off early in the movie, he still played a memorable role and got the redemption that he deserved alongside Reeves. With John Wick 4 being the highest rated entry in the entire franchise, it's clear Sanada helped elevate the action series, and his efforts on screen with Reeves set up an interesting narrative. The duo also showed the long-standing history between their characters despite it being Sanada's John Wick debut, and their dynamic significantly proved on 47 Ronin, which finally have them the captivative reunion they both deserved. The end of John Wick Chapter 4 leaves fans wondering, is John Wick dead? Since some claim that he survived. The sequel continues to follow John, Keanu Reeves on his journey to return to his normal non-assassin's life, but the increasing price on his head makes that difficult. The movie is full of groundbreaking action sequence, but it's also surprisingly emotional, as John is seemingly killed in a duel with Kane, played by Donnie. The assassin shared his final word with his old friend Winston Ion Machine, then is buried in New York with a headstone reading "Loving Husband." The John Wick movies has grown in popularity since the first film's modest box office success in 2014. 3 movies later, John Wick has become a billion-dollar franchise. John Wick Chapter 4 made over $432 million alone, a huge achievement of Lionsgate. But it calls into question why the studio would kill off the character of the highest point of the series' popularity. It's a bad move, but it's an industry where franchises never die if they are still popular. There are a lot of reasons to hold out hope that John Wick survives and will return. John Wick's burial isn't shown. While John Wick supposedly dies in a duel with Kane as he kneels over on the steps in Paris, the movie doesn't actually show him die. Not only that, but while Winston and the Poverty King, played by Lawrence Fishburne, are standing at his grave in the cemetery at the end of the John Wick Chapter 4, there isn't a proper burial in the movie. It's unlikely that the day Winston and the Poverty King visit the cemetery in John's burial, as the grass is uncut and it's as if John has been buried for months. With action movies, if a character dies off screen, the chances are high that they are probably not dead. Having the film end with a scene of his grave feels purposeful, as if the movie is letting the audience know that the world thinks John is dead, thus giving him the escape he was seeking. John Wick 5 discussion are already happening. It seems as if nobody's on the same page about John Wick 5, as director Chad Stahelski seemingly doesn't want to make another movie, and Keanu Reeves has yet to properly comment on the sequel, but Lionsgate has outright confirmed it. The studio has not verified whether John Wick 5 is a prequel, which could very well be the case and keep the emotional John Wick Chapter 4 ending intact. This is an issue with big franchises that want to leave audience with a cliffhanger only for it to be undercut by the studio eagerly teasing more projects to come. However, the movie will most likely be a sequel and follow on from John Wick Chapter 4, and it will probably reveal how John Wick survived. Nevertheless, while it has been confirmed Reeves' silence on the sequel speaks volume, this is an issue with big franchises that want to leave audience with a cliffhanger only for it to be undercut by the studio eagerly teasing more projects to come. This is familiar to Spider-Man Far From Home being announced before audience know that Spider-Man would be brought back to life in Avenger Endgame. John Wick Chapter 4 cut a scene confirming John Wick survived. Director Chad Stahelski revealed that John Wick Chapter 4 originally featured an alternate ending where John Wick survived, but the scene tested badly during test screening. As a result, Stahelski made the brave decision to remove it, making the prospect of John Wick 5 much harder for Lionsgate. Despite the fact that the filmmaker had the plan that John was going to survive in the end suggests make it more likely they have not closed the door on the character's future. Stahelski is working on a director's cut of John Wick Chapter 4, and it's possible that he could include the cutscene of John surviving. That would significantly help John Wick 5 avoid its biggest problem. I Am Legend 2 is following on from the first movie's alternate ending, and audience could see the same happen with the John Wick franchise. Winston and the Poverty King are powerful enough to fake John's death. Between Winston and the Poverty King, they have more than enough power to fake John's death in John Wick Chapter 4. The Poverty King alone has so many resources and connections that he can get his hands on weaponry, vehicles, and bulletproof suits across the world, and even manage to sneak an injured John back to the safety of the underground after he was left for dead in John Wick 3. In that respect, there's no denying that he could have helped John fake his death. However, one thing that undermines this clue is that the Poverty King and Winston expresses genuine sadness when they were standing at John's grave at the end of John Wick Chapter 4. Of course, they also show doubt he is already dead. It is like only one of them had a role in faking John's death, and the coyness between them is these two secretive men trying to keep the truth hidden. The dog as John Wick Chapter 4 sees something in the cemetery. During the cemetery scene in John Wick Chapter 4, Winston and the Poverty King are not alone at John's tombstone. John's trusty pit bull is there too during the scene. The dog's ears perk up and he looks to the side if he notices somebody in the distance, or maybe he smells his master's scent. Given the dog in the John Wick franchise are extremely clever and skilled, it would not be surprising if the pit bull senses John's somewhere. After all, this is the same dog who found John in the Poverty King's lair after he was left in a New York taxi cab in John Wick Chapter 3 Problem. As good as the dog actors in the franchise are, it is possible that Kenny simply got distracted by something happening on the busy movie set of camera. However, was meant to be a clue. It is a clever one and impressive that the filmmaker showed restraint is not calling too much attention to it. John Wick has survived much worse. During the duel with Kane, John is shot 3 times, with 2 of those shots being non-life threatening and only one hitting him in his torso. It's hard to believe that one bullet killed John Wick when it wasn't even a headshot, especially given all the injuries he has sustained and the beating he has endured. Throughout all 4 John Wick movies, John has sustained over 200 injuries, including getting stabbed multiple times, being thrown through windows, and falling from such a great heights on countless oceans. Outside the ending of John Wick Chapter 4, John has only been shot clearly once, but thanks to the director in John Wick Chapter 3 Problem, that was taken care of. There's no reason why John could not have been rushed to that same doctor after the duel. There is a sense that John may have simply expected that this was a fitting time to stop fighting, but he also may have taken the opportunity to convince the world that his latest injury was fatal when it was really just one of many. Several of John's allies were not at the cemetery. Whether it's a John's burial or funeral at the end of the John Wick Chapter 4, it's strange that Winston and the Poverty King were the only 2 characters to pay their respects. While John has made a lot of enemies, he still has several allies. Greg, Honor, Erleo, and police officer Jimmy should both have been at the cemetery. The movie also made it clear that Kane and John Wick know each other for a long time and were close, so it doesn't make sense that Kane was not there either. All the people in attendance at Helen's funeral in the first John Wick movie would surely have known John too. One wrinkle in this clue is that all of these friends of John didn't show up to his funeral because they know he isn't really dead. Then it means his fake death is a poorly kept secret. It is more fitting to think they didn't show up because they simply didn't believe that John Wick could be killed. Marquis Vincent de Gramor's words in John Wick Chapter 4 were literal. In John Wick Chapter 4, Marquis Vincent says John is nothing but a ghost searching for a graveyard. That line of dialogue clearly implies that the Marquis believed that John was inevitably going to get killed sooner or later. However, that dialogue could also be a hint to audience that this was John's plan all along. Throughout the movie, John could have been planning to fake his death and that he wanted to have a burial so that the High Table believed he was dead and assassin stops hunting him. It is possible this gave the idea to John to escape his life by making the world think he was dead. The Marquis comment could have been a clever foreshadowing of John Wick's return. Indeed, this is also hinted at in another line of dialogue in the first scene of the movie. Then the adult tells John the only way John Wick will ever have freedom or peace, now or ever, is in death. It is possible this gave the idea to John to escape his life by making the world think he was dead. Despite the ritual character seemingly being killed in the last movie, the John Wick franchise continues to grow into the future. As mentioned, John Wick 5 is in the works, even if it is unclear that role Keanu Reeves will play in bringing the character back. The latest news on the sequel is that there is a script being written, and it is likely the key players will decide from there if the story is worth bringing this iconic character back from the dead. A spin-off series, Ballerina, will take a look at the underground world of the ballerinas, which was introduced in John Wick 3 as a new fiction of his criminal world. Ana de Armas will take on the lead role in the movie, but it has been confirmed that Reeves will make an appearance in the movie, along with other franchise veterans like Ian McShane and the late Lance Reddick. With Reddick's Sharon having died in John Wick 4, it seems confirmed that the movie takes place sometime before then. The third and final movie that is confirmed to be yet in development within the franchise at this time is spin-off about Donnie's character of Kane. The film is said to be linked to the post-credit scene of John Wick 4, in which Akira seeks revenge on Kane for the death of her father. While each of these movies prove the franchise has a bright future, none of them offer a definitive answer about whether John Wick is alive or dead. John Wick Chapter 4 was the franchise's biggest movie yet, and while it saw many of its most recognizable characters return, Halle Berry's Sophia was one noticeable absence. After the high expectations set by the first three films, John Wick 4 continues its box office win streak and delivered another quality action film that is arguably the best in the series. Like its previous films, it made 4 times its budget, becoming the highest grossing movie in the franchise. Not only did the action level up once again, but John Wick 4 somehow managed to raise the stakes once more and ensure the investment in a fourth film paid off. The latest John Wick film was also helped by its exciting cast. Bill Skarsgård, Rena Sawayama, and Shamir Addison were among some of the standout new additions. However, regulars such as Ian McShane, Lawrence Fishburne, and the late Lance Reddick all helped make John Wick 4 become one of the 2023's most memorable movie. While there were many returns in the fourth film, one noticeable exception was Halle Berry's character Sophia. Having debuted in the previous film John Wick Chapter 3, Peplum, Sophia seemed like she could have a big future with the franchise. Yet she never appeared in John Wick 4. John Wick 4 attempted for new character instead of Halle Berry's return. While Halle Berry's return in John Wick Chapter 4 would have been a welcome one, the latest installment wanted to focus on newer characters. Although some old characters did return, they have been regular throughout the franchise and were still essential to the story. Finster, Charon, the Bowery King, and Shimazu Koji were all key to John Wick's journey, and their absence in the fourth movie would have felt out of place. Despite the big roles of the regular cast, it was newer characters that featured more prominently and proved that the intention was to keep the series fresh, as according to CBR, Director Chad Stahelski didn't want to risk franchise fatigue. With the Continental's release in 2023 and Ballerina scheduled for 2024, it is clear the franchise is branching out beyond its protagonist. There are plenty of potential John Wick spin-off movies that could be made, but these would not be possible without John Wick 4's new character. Bringing in a different cast prevented storyline from being repeated and let John's story come to natural conclusion, even if there's still some mystery surrounding the ending. Sophie was a great character who played a huge role in the third film, but she would not have fit John Wick's fourth story, and it seems the right decision to hold off on the return. What happened to Sophie after John Wick Chapter 3? There is a little known about that happened to Sophia Al-Aswar after John Wick Chapter 3, given she didn't feature in the sequel. Her last appearances in the franchise was leaving John in the desert to let him find the Elder of the High Table. Sophia is the manager of the Casablanca Continental, meaning she may have returned to his role after the ending of John Wick 3. However, after the course she and John caused, it is possible she also had to flee her home. Her old boss Brada seems to hold heavy power in Morocco, meaning Sophia's action could have led to possible consequences. Sophia shot Brada in the leg twice while her dog also attacked him, which could have huge ramifications. It is clear as to how powerful Brada is, but he may be deadly enough to cause Sophia to leave Morocco. Especially since her daughter is in hiding, the mystery around Sophia's daughter could be what bringing her back to the franchise. The way her story ended in John Wick 3 made her future a mystery, but a John Wick spin-off movie featuring Halle Berry still seems possible given her daughter's potential connection to the ballerinas. While Sophia's future after John Wick 3 is unclear, there is a good chance her story is not over. Halle Berry's Sophia is still part of John Wick's future plan. John Wick's director confirmed plans for Halle Berry to return, meaning there is a strong possibility Sophia will appear again. The uncertainty around Sophia's ending alongside Berry's absence in John Wick 4 may have fans concerned, but she still seems to be in the franchise future plans. John Wick's director confirmed plan for Halle Berry to return, meaning there is a strong possibility Sophia will appear again. With the movie series already branching out onto spin-off, Berry getting her own movie would be a logical move. Not only was she eager to be a part of the John Wick universe, but Berry's character still has a lot of untapped potential and could link to future assassins within the series. Considering Halle Berry did her own stunt for John Wick 3, her action skills, interesting characters, and huge name would help John Wick into a new era. Reeves' character is iconic, but that doesn't mean the franchise cannot go on without him. There are still questions over whether John Wick really died in Chapter 4, but the series may never get another chance to move away from him. Giving Berry more spotlight after John Wick 4 and elevating other characters seems like the franchise's best move. With so many unknowns, the future is unclear for John Wick, but it does seem like Halle Berry will be a part of it. How many stunts Keanu Reeves does himself in John Wick Chapter 4 and other films. As one of the Hollywood's greatest action stars, Keanu Reeves does his own stunts and nowhere in the more impressive than in the John Wick movies. Many factors contribute to the John Wick movie franchise constant success, from the stoic lead character to the clever world building of its universe of assassins. However, at the center of it all, the visceral and exciting action sequence that have helped it become one of the greatest action movie franchises of all time. The fact that Keanu Reeves does his own stunts for the John Wick movies only adds to the effectiveness of these sequences. Reeves has built a reputation over the years as being hand-on with his action movie roles, memorably performs his own fight sequence in The Matrix and its sequels. However, there are a lot of different elements to the stunts shown in all the John Wick movies. The action features a blend of martial arts, high-stakes kung fu, and raw tactical combat. On top of that, Reeves has also done various car stunts, done impressive knife play, and even ridden a horse. John Wick served as something as a comeback for Reeves in the action movie world, and his dedication to the role makes the success all the more deserving. Keanu Reeves does over 90% of his stunts in John Wick movies. In an interview via JackTax on YouTube before the release of John Wick Chapter 4, Keanu Reeves explained that he did 90% of his stunts in the first John Wick movie and close to 95% in John Wick Chapter 2. Reeves' commitment to performing his stunts leave more room for the director Chastain to be creative with action sequences without worrying too much about transitions between the actor and his stunts doubles. Audience may rarely notice when a stunt double replaces an actor in an action scene, but Reeves' ability to do most of his stunts can subtly enhance the scene's realism, making it more immersive for viewers. Doing his stunts also benefits Reeves in many ways, for instance, going through the training required to pull off stunts from his John Wick movies allows him to step inside his character boots and fully embody him during filming. As Reeves highlighted in an interview via Today, his stunts help him maintain the connection with the audience and win the story, given how performing John Wick stunts demands a high level of athleticism, talent, and commitment toward training. It is another impressive element within Reeves' overall performance. Keanu Reeves' training for John Wick explained. To shed light on how the augurs an actor's capability to perform stunts, Chad Stahelski said that when it comes to martial art, choreography, and action scenes involving driving, Keanu Reeves is as impressive as professional stunt people, if not better. Comparing Keanu Reeves' execution of stunts with his own experiences as a stunt person, Stahelski claimed that Reeves does more choreography and execute the memorization of the move safety with the gun thing better than I would say 95 to 98% of any stunt person I have ever seen. In another interview for John Wick 2, Reeves explained his daily training designed for the role. Recalling how he had fun training, Reeves said he worked with professionals to train with pistol and other weapons and even practice stunt driving and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for the John Wick fight scenes. He added that he would start training around 9 in the morning and do it till 1 or 2 hours in the afternoon. He would then eat lunch, lift weight, train again and do the 5 to 6 days a week. For John Wick Chapter 4, via Variety, Reeves recounted that he went through 12 weeks of training which also involved practicing nunchucks. To enhance his driving skills for the fourth installment, he also learned 180s forward into reverse, 180 reverse into forward, 270s and also drifting. Which John Wick stunts does Keanu Reeves not do? As Chad Stahelski explained, he trusts Keanu Reeves with most stunts that involved martial arts and driving. However, the director draws a line when a stunt scene is too risky for the actor to perform for intense, which is experience as a stunt person. Stahelski realizes that getting a hit by the car is a stunt scene can go wrong even for a professional stunt double. Understanding the gender behind performing these scenes, Stahelski lets a stunt double take over. Even the one-take stair fall scene toward the ending moment of John Wick Chapter 4 was performed by Reeves' stunt double Vincent Boullon. Considering how it took John Wick's team 2 days to film the scene during which the stunt double had to fall several times, Boullon deserves appreciation for making the scene incredibly possibly. Reeves too deserves credit for putting in the work and taking so many potential risks to bring John Wick's compelling action scenes to the screen. Now let's talk about the full cast and crew of the movie. The movie is directed by Chad Stahelski. Writing credits: Shea Hatton, Mitchell Fint, Derek Kolstad. Cast: Keanu Reeves as John Wick, Lawrence Fishburne as Bowery King, George Gagio as the Elder, Lance Reddick as Charon, Clancy Brown as Harbinger, Ian McShane as Winston, Marco Zarur as Chidi, Bill Skarsgård as Marquis, Donnie as Kane, Amy Khan as Mia, Haruki Sanda as Shimizu, Shamir Edison as Tracker, Raina Shivayama as Akira, Yoshiniro Tashiro as Sumo, Hiroki Sumo as Sumo, Daiki Suzuki as Daiki, Julia Asuka Riddle as Operator, Malina Renton as Operator, Evie Keanu as Operator, Arina Tafnoob as Operator, Ariana Fedorova as Babushka, Andrzej Kaminsky as Priest, Natalie Tina as Katy, Sevan Markrod as Klaus, Scott Edson as Keela, Raj Veslev as German Gangster, Mary Pira Kokoma as DJ, Gina Apong as Club Host, Robert Bates as Thug, Christoph Hoffman as Valet, Salman A.V. Thug, Jessica Mishra Gangster, Wilma Richardson Gangster, Miku San Thug. The movie is produced by Dayala A.I. Rai, line producer from Jordan. Raphael Bonoliel, line producer from France. Christopher Pfizer, co-producer. Basil Onok, producer. Yuka Kato, line producer from Japan. Fard Khalil, line producer from Jordan. Erica Lee, producer. David Leitch, executive producer. Henning Wolfenter, co-producer. Michael Pacernik, executive producer. Keanu Reeves, executive producer. Lewis Rosner, executive producer. Chad Salke, producer. Charlie Bobcat, co-producer. Music by Taylor Bates and Joel J. Richard. Cinematography by Dan Lostson. Editing by Nathan Orloff. Casting by Carmel Jordan, Magali Combas. Production design by Kevin Knock. Art direction by Emil Berg, Gilles Pilot, Kareem Dare, Regis Markil, Andreas Alsacin, Cornelia Ort, Thierry Zimar. Set decoration by Mark Rosinski. Costume design by Paco Delgado. Makeup department Antoinette Adderty, hair co-designer. Caroline Beto, additional hairstylist. Pascal Bekir, makeup artist. Orion Katox, makeup artist. Valerie Capley, key makeup artist. Ramrick Colombani, hairstylist from Paris. Bethan Crowley, trainee silicone technician. Dave Ilse, prosthetic makeup supervisor. Lou Ilse, prosthetic makeup supervisor. Sabina Favor, makeup artist from Paris. Stephanie Frank, additional makeup and hair. Niall Gorton, prosthetic makeup designer. Stephen Kelly, makeup designer. Zoe Cartier, stunt wigs. Birger Loeb, makeup artist. Fiona Mifsud, makeup artist from New York. Michael Mosler, hairstylist. Jekaterina Ortel, hairstylist. Betsy Rice, hairstylist from New York. Petra Storman, makeup co-designer. Sylvia Skavser, hairstylist. Gary Smith, hair designer and personal hairstylist. Victoria Steiber, junior makeup artist. Lorena F. Irakel, hair and makeup artist. Melissa Jacob, hairstylist. Deon Kang, makeup artist, New York. Morgan Kimber, senior silicone technician. Chris Leons, dental prosthetic. Jaleel Trumo, additional hair and makeup artist. Irina Tabki, additional hair and makeup artist. Production management Natalie Ansel, production supervisor from Paris. Ellen Betsy, assistant production manager. Antonine Depardieu, unit production manager from Paris. Bryce Funkeus, unit manager from Paris. Jean Gasticure, lock-off manager from Paris. Tekaro Inagaki, production supervisor from Japan. Michael Carrares, unit production manager from New York. Elizabeth Ledke, manager of production and development. Benjamin Robert, set manager. Arno Navar, unit production manager from Germany. Laus Rosner, unit production manager. Farasella, production supervisor from Jordan. Stephen Setchweiser, assistant set manager. Joseph Shimon, UMP assistant Jordan. Michael Tinger, post-production supervisor. Ike Wolf, head of study operation. Sonja B. Zimmer, production executive. Second unit director or assistant director. Farah Al-Majali, second assistant director from Jordan. Rita Almeida, set production assistant. Anna Avramko, third assistant director. Jesse Billis, second director, additional photography. Laurent Pilou, lock of manager. Pete Busman, set production assistant. Zuchi Shomron, set production assistant. Alan Fenley, first assistant director. Adri Horson, second assistant director. Ahmed Komako, third assistant director. Mark Anthony Little, first assistant director. Jeremy Marks, first assistant director. Kazi Jadon Meme, trainee assistant director. Tim Nevin, second assistant director. Art department. Lucy Abrams, lead industrial syndic, New York. Martin Estich, construction buyer from Paris. Lucille Basquiat, store manager. Julian Berger, set designer. Maria A, standby props. Nan Norsleek, key set decoration buyer. Maria Delfos, set decoration buyer. Fred Golan, model maker from Paris. Carlos from construction designer. Jordan Perley, props. Now let's talk about the next one is sound department. Michael Pate, dialogue editor for Musa Group. Manfred Batch, production, sound mixer. Charles Barrett, supervisor. Tom Baikin, dialogue editor. Olivier Chance, re-recording mixer, VFX. Zach Kulspogs, mix technician. Jardo Nordine, Foley artist. Special effect by George Slave Pocket, key special effect, senior breakaway technician. Frank Carpenter, special effect foreman from Paris. Visual effects by Deshpande Abhijit. Stab Ahmed, senior compositor, light VFX. Harry Berdax, visual effects supervisor, The Yard VFX. Drog Castello, Rito Preps artist, One of Us. Charlie Cha, visual effect artist, radio VFX. Stephen Anticott, animation director, One of Us. Nikhil Corbin, visual effect system administration. Captain Hugh, compositor, The York VFX. Alexandria Lee, visual effect production coordinator. Olivier Martin, lead visual effect artist, Rodeo VFX. Parek Pathak, visual effects. Kemali Paris, Ruto Prep artist, One of Us. Matthew Rumi, concept artist, One of Us. Drew Tobin, visual effect artist. Evan Trong, lead assist artist. Zantina, compositor. Julian Carpentier, VFX artist. Florian Longard, visual effect galist. Stephen J. Smith, head of Ruto. The stunts are played by Mahant Abdullah, Ahmed Al-Badawi, Othan AI, Adil Amour, Felix Ardo, Assam Benmar, David Priest, Vincent, Alain Bohr, Hadrian, Oscar Kozila, Boric Chan, Daniel DeZinger, and Javi Franco. Now let's explain the ending of the movie. Is John Wick dead or what? Yes, well, probably, maybe. We do in fact see Wick seriously wounded and bleeding after his literal pistol at Town Dole with Rooney Chan's blind assassin's cane. Not to mention an entire night of getting shot, punched, kicked and run over by seemingly everyone in Paris, kneel over lifeless on the steps of the Skarsgård Basilica. After that we cut to New York with Winston played by Iron Machine and the Poverty King played by Lawrence Fishburne along with John's dog standing over the grave where he's been right next to the late wife Helen. Loving husband, the gravestone reads just as John himself had requested earlier in the film. I never thought I'd see that day, the king says before asking Winston if he thinks John is heaven or hell. Who knows, says Winston. The king chuckles to himself as he walks away. Winston stays behind, touches John's grave and mutters, "Farewell, my son," in Russians. Then he too walks away as the camera cranes up. Of course, scenes of people standing over the graves of heroes and who didn't actually die in a common motif in modern action cinema, so we keep waiting for that inevitable reveal. And there's a hint of it as we see the dog turning off screen. What's next? A shadow in the distance watching them, a telltale mood top quietly moving into frame, the date on the grave levitating mysteriously. No, we see none of these things, and the credits finally start to roll. Surely there's an end credit stinger showing us the John Wick is still alive, maybe launching with his new family in a cafe on the banks of the Arno, Bruce Wayne style. In fact, there is an end credit scene, but it's not what we expect. We see Keynes, now retired and supposedly free of all his obligations as a hired assassin, walking to listen to his violent, virtuous daughter as she plays in a crowded outdoor plaza. He holds a bucket of flowers, which suggests that he will finally be able to let her know he is there. But then a hooded figure approaches him. It's Akira, whose father Kane killed earlier in the film. Revenge in her eyes, she pulls a knife. Fade to black. No John Wick, but perhaps a setup for a sequel or spin-off for some short. There are indeed spin-offs in the works for John Wick franchise, including Ballerina featuring Anna de Armas and a prequel series showing the New York Continental Hotel's early days. There's no way Lionsgate is giving the property up, especially as it's about to make a boatload of money, and director Chad Stahelski, while noting that he and Keanu Reeves are done with the Wick for the moment, has said this might return. The truth is that there will be many more entries in the John Wick universe, and Reeves could easily come back as the flashback or a force ghost of some kind, so his potential return doesn't mean Wick would still be alive. Would not feel it a little blah, however, for the John Wick movies to simply turn into another cinematic universe populated with a bunch of other random characters, given the extent to which these films has relied on Reeves' unique cinematic panorama. Do we really want John Wick to get Bond legacy yet? As my colleagues Angelica Chad Bastien says in our review, the film's ending feels like it's fighting the gravitational force of Reeves rather than submitting to it. It's a final moment cannot help but put into harsh relief the fact that his ridiculous word of glory and put punches is evolving to exist without its namesake, yet it still needs him to feel alive. One suspects that the filmmakers are not entirely unaware of this, and it isn't hard to see how John Wick could return as a fresh and blood character if Reeves and Stahelski, and more importantly the audience, wanted him to. After all, doesn't the Bowery King chuckle there at the end of suggest there is something more going on? Remember, he was the one who rescued John Wick at the end of John Wick Chapter 3 after our hero took that must be one of the most spectacular falls of a building in movie history and everyone thought he was dead. And what about the tattoo was glimpse on Winston's hand at the very end? It's the mark of the Roscaroma John's claim. Do his words, "Farewell, my son," take on greater meaning? Could Winston be John Wick's father? Even if he is not, that's a hell of an idea to introduce right at the end, relative to a character who is presumably dead and gone forever. No, there's clearly more to this story. At the same time, John Wick Chapter 4 had to end this way. Throughout this whole series, John Wick has been trying to gain his freedom from the High Table, the mysterious all-powerful network of assassins to which he had once shown undying fealty. A final tall fought according to the High Table's ancient codes has over the course of chapter 4 been built as one thing that would liberate John for good. His opponent is technically the Marquis Vincent de Caramot, played by Bill Skarsgård, who has been given totally power by the table to destroy John, who was excommunicated in John Wick 2 because he killed someone in the sports sanctuary of the Continental Hotel. The Marquis, utilizing another arcane rule, has nominated sponsors Kane to fight in this place. But Kane, who has been trying to kill John Wick throughout the film, also happens to be John's friend, but retired from the business to be with their families, and both have been pulled back. John, because the dumbest Russian gangster princeling in human history, killed his dog and stole his car in the first John Wick. Kane's because he is one of the few people in the world who can actually get to him. Both men need to win his duel, in other words, to gain back their freedom. The way the duel unfolds seems to indicate that John and Kane have reached a period understanding. The standoff, filmed like Barry Layton and scored like The Goods, the Bad and the Ugly, two movies with iconic doll, begin with each of them walking 30 paces. They yell step 10 paces closer each round if neither falls. Sure enough, that's what happens. In the first salvo, each man gets the other in the arm. In the next salvo, at 20 paces apart, one is hit in the shoulder, another in the side. At 10 paces, Kane fired before John and gets him in the side of the belly. John falls. The Marquis, seeing his chance, takes over from Kane. As your sponsors, I claim the Cop de Grace. The Marquis prepared to shoot John at virtually point blank range and motors roll. But wait, John Wick hasn't fired his gun yet. You arrogant asshole, Winston yells. He didn't shoot. John then points the gun, motors consequences through his teeth, and puts a bullet in the Marquis' head. John is played by the table's rule, the very rules he has been accused of breaking for several films now, and prevailed. He has beaten the villains at their own game. So Jan has won his freedom, but he is also seemingly mortally wounded. It takes him a while to get up, and he does so only to walk down a few steps and sit back down, looking out at Paris in the dawn light. He asks Winston to take him home. It feels honestly like the first time our hero has been able to draw a quiet breath in the entire series. As he sits here, bleeding, he recalls a long ago happy moments with his wife, Helen. In this, John Wick being beckoned to the beyond on the question of God and an afterlife. John has remained uncommittal in the past. In an earlier film, he said he wanted to keep on living in order to keep his wife's memory alive. He has been a death-adjacent figure since the very beginning, but he has never actually had a death wish. One could argue that dying was the only way John could win, or maybe this was all part of his plan. Even if the table declares him free, the whole series has been proof that he would not still be targeted. In that light, the end credits stranger showing Kane being hunted by Akira gains reviewed meaning. Kane too has possibly been freed, but as long as he's alive, those his heart will come after him. This is precisely the fate that John wants to avoid. This is why he made Pretty have to disappear after the face of the earth. And maybe even we have to believe that John Wick is dead, because if we believe he is gone, we will not immediately clamor for sequel from poor Keanu Reeves, who will be 30-year-old in the 2 years, and Chad Stahelski, who has a bazillion films in productions or development but has never gotten to direct a non-John Wick movie and would probably love to branch out a bit. But ending the film on this note, they are not only given John Wick this freedom, they are also claimed their own, at least for a while. John Wick Chapter 4 ending explained. Does the assassin finally earned his freedom? The John Wick franchise has been one of the few modern sagas that was maintained a constant level of quality throughout every installment. Considering the level of the anticipation that Keanu Reeves and director Chad Stahelski face with each film and the expectation to top their previous stunts, John Wick Chapter 4 had a lot to live up to. Thankfully, the fourth installment in the series managed to top the action in every film period. At nearly 3 hours in length, John Wick Chapter 4 is the biggest sequel yet, but it's also the most emotional with a great ending that can cruise this era of the John Wick franchise. Fans of the John Wick series are in luck as Chapter 4 is now streaming on Stars. The ending of John Wick Chapter 3 Problem featured John being shot off the side of the New York Continental Hotel by Winston Scott for the crimes leveled at him by the High Table. However, Winston remains one of John Wick's closest allies and knows that he has been rescued and taken to safety by the Bowery King. John Wick Chapter 4 release that John is still looking for redemption and wants to finally find peace after constantly having to kill people to stay alive. Unfortunately, the High Table is still determined to see him dead. The powerful High Table leader Marquis Vincent de Garmout, played by Bill Skarsgård, has placed a bounty on his head, which can only be ended if John replaces him. John Wick Chapter 4 sees John searching for a way to clear his name by challenging Marquis' place at the High Table. Here's everything you need to know about the ending of John Wick Chapter 4. John Wick Chapter 4 gives us a new path of revenge. John Wick has been hunting down member of the High Table overseas, but he is told that he cannot clear the name because he is being excommunicated. This news comes at a time when his home is in danger. Winston receives a visit from Marquis, who's destroyed the New York Continental, declares the site as excommunicated, and kills Sharon, played by Lance Reddick. Marquis later hires the assassin Mr. Nobody and Kane to track him down. John sees refuge in the Osaka Continental, but Kane's and Marquis soldiers storm the site and kill its manager Shimazu Koji. While John had been friends with Koji in the past, Koji's daughter Akira swears that his debt has not been paid. When he returns to New York, John is told by Winston that he must earn a seat on the High Table by challenging Marquis to a duel on behalf of a crime family. Sadly, these scenes bear the weight of the real-life tragedy. During the initial press cycle for John Wick 4, Lance Reddick sadly passed away. Many of Reddick's co-stars paid tribute to his legacy at the film premiere, with Reeves stating that Lance was a beautiful person, especially artist, a man of grace and dignity, and he had such a passion for his craft. Fishburne added that Reddick was his heart of these movies in many movies, and that at the end of the day, he would not want us to do this. Sanada added that Reddick's performance was among his favorite in the series, and that he recognized how he was a kind person and a great human being. Even if the character of Chiron has passed on, Reddick leaves an indelible mark on the series that would continually be appreciated by a generation of John Wick fans. How does John Wick Chapter 4 tie to the past? John travels to Berlin to request a doll on behalf of the Ruska Roma syndicate. While his adoptive sister Katia still holds a grudge against him, John is able to earn the family's blessing after killing the German High Table senior member Kila. The Berlin encounter also reveals John's friendship with Kane, who is forced to work for Marquis in order to spare his daughter's life. John is able to officially challenge Marquis to a duel, with Winston as his second, Marquis claim Kane as his. The battle is set to place at Skarsgård, where they will separate by third places and duel with pistols. In exchange for his involvement, Winston requests that if John emerges victorious, both he and the New York Continental will be reinstated. John's arrival in Paris is met with carnage when Marquis raises the price on his head, inspiring the entire city of assassins to start hunting him down. After John receives several wounds before he makes his way to the church, he doesn't believe that he will be able to make it to the top by sunrise. Failing to meet at the appropriate time would indicate he has conquered the doll. However, Cain appears at the right time and helps John reach his destination in time. He also spares his life of Mr. Nobody, who goes to the church in order to watch the doll. What happens in John Wick Chapter 4's final doll? John Wick Chapter 4's final doll is set at the 30 paces with 10 paces intervals closing each time two pistols are fired, and neither participant is killed. After several brutal rounds, Cain fires and nearly kills John, who falls to the ground before Cain can deliver the killing shot. Marquis takes his place so he can personally execute John. However, Marquis does not realize that John has not yet fired his gun. John kills Marquis and officially wins the doll. Winston is allowed by the High Table's Harbinger to be reinstated as the conqueror of the rebuilt New York Continental. John is still fatally wounded and collapses on the steps of the church, appearing to be dead. His funeral is later held in the New York buried next to his wife Helen. Both Winston and the Poverty King pay their respect. White Cain goes to find his daughter. Does John Wick Chapter 4 have a post-credit scene? John Wick Chapter 4 post-credit scene reveals that Cain is out to reunite with his daughter but cuts away after Akira follows them and makes out a knife, since he is still out of vengeance and Cain was John's ally. It's likely that the two will be pitted still out of vengeance against each other. However, it's unclear when the next encounter will be. While John Wick Chapter 5 was greenlit, Stahelski stated that the decision in the studio's hands and he and the Ravens are still evaluating their options. However, it would certainly be in Lionsgate's best interest to continue with the series, as thanks to the performance of Chapter 4, the franchise has now pushed past $1 billion at the worldwide box office. It's exciting that great critically acclaimed films like John Wick Chapter 4 are able to generate strong audience turnout. It just goes to show studios that audience appreciate quality, and Chapter 4 certainly has many terrific action sequences that are well worth watching on repeated viewing. John Wick Chapter 4's strong performance at the box office is notable in 2023, as many of the year's most anticipated sequels and franchise films underperformed with both critics and audience. Films like Shazam! Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, Fast X and Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania were expected to be blockbuster size hits, yet didn't prove themselves worth of repeated viewing. However, John Wick Chapter 4 proved that sequels that improved and surpasses the achievement of their precedents could generate sustained interest. John Wick Chapter 4 has been subsequently hailed as one of the greatest action movies of all time. Even if the John Wick series does not continue past Chapter 4, the franchise has inspired many other popular action films that utilize the premise of an older, retired assassin getting back into the profession that they built their name on. Bob Odenkirk showed a more comedic side to an action hero with 2021's Nobody, and Stahelski let Charlize Theron kick some major butt in the underrated 2017 comic book adaptation Atomic Blonde. So, where is the John Wick franchise headed from here? Currently, Reeves and McCain are set to reprise their role in the spin-off film Ballerina. It has been confirmed that Reddick also filmed scenes from his tragic death earlier this year.